So Delta was born on April Fool's Day 2006, a new business from scratch.
With 8 foundation shareholders: Gerard Hines, John Fisher, Tim Condon, Phil McGeek, Steve McClimate, Peter Kennedy, Darryl Garrick and myself.
No, April Fool's Day wasn't intentional. Just I think we realised on the day that it was April Fool's Day, and it was a raging drought. So there were plenty of people that drove past this building in Young with dust blowing in from the west, thinking, "What are these guys doing? They're crazy."
We said, right, we've got to do something about this. Let's start and chart our own destiny. So we all got together, and I remember sitting around at Peter Kennedy's one afternoon, having a beer and trying to think a name. And
we canvassed ideas amongst the original shareholders, and we got a number of out there suggestions.
None of mine suggestions made the first base.
I think it was after about the 8th schooner that Pato came up with the name Delta, and he had some good reasons why it was a fit.
Deltas are the river flats at the end of rivers that flow into the sea, but they were also in the historic times the most fertile places where communities built their towns and their farms.
All the rivers flowed into the delta, so in our business we've got our merchandise and our fertiliser and our grain marketing and our livestock, etc. So the business revenue streams flowing into the one delta. I remember Fish saying to him, "Delta, what a ridiculous name, what's that mean?" And Pato shot back and said, "Well, what's Westpac mean?" And he looked and said, "Oh, well, I don't know, good point."
Yeah, no, I thought it was a bit wanky, to be honest, but again, overruled by my much wiser partners.
Delta Ag, and voila, here 10 years later, here we are.
Fertile country from a farming perspective, and also a fertile business.
Yeah, it's still wanky, but yeah, we haven't found much better.
Well, Chris and I actually teamed up in 1989. We cut our teeth in the Chandler's business, Chandler's Yarmouth, then Chandler's Landmark, and that was a wonderful journey. We learned a lot. We had good partners along the way, particularly Wesfarmers, who we got on well with those guys and learned a lot from them about systems and processes, which held us in good stead for what was to evolve later in our careers.
Chandler's Landmark is a company that we are really proud of, because I think it typifies the sort of performance that we hope we can achieve out of all of our businesses in Wesfarmers. A real focus on performance, focus on the customer, and really an obsession with customer service and a very high level of professionalism. And it's terrific to be here to share this event with you tonight. And I would defy anyone to find a rural agency sort of business anywhere in the world that does it better than this company who's hosting us here tonight.
The core basis for Delta was bringing the good things out of both the private company and the back-end systems of a public company, and marrying those two things together. Plus also our core ethos of us wanting to being the best of what we do and adding value to our client base. Certainly in those days, our business back in Monteagle, back then was a one-branch, one-stop shop. We used to sell fuel, lollies, the papers for the local people. It was half a house, and the other half of the house was where we sold merchandise. We eventually grew out of that after a couple of years, but the security system in that location was a meat steal through a couple of holes in a door. All the things that you wouldn't do in this day and age, but it was certainly some very humble beginnings.
Delta's it's what we wanted it to be right from the outset. It was to be, let's be in control of our own destiny, let's be in a really strong position, really strong balance sheet that was on the financial side of things, because we're all going to tip our money into this and get it going. So we wanted to have a good, strong financial company, and a company that we're in control of and we're working for ourselves.
So the early days were challenging, to say the least. We were operating in premises that weren't finished. We were frantically setting up new accounts. There were politics in the marketplace given this new business. A lot of our key suppliers didn't initially support us, which made it even more difficult to get some traction.
We had a lot of faith in each other. I had enormous faith in my partners at the time. I knew we could do it. I knew we would, but the time frame's an unknown. Plus we did it in the millennium drought. Some would say you couldn't have picked a worse period to go out your own. But in many ways, that gave us many opportunities. The drought did make it too hard for some of our competitors, as an example. our client base needed more help probably than ever before.
But we knew that if we just focused on what we were good at, that we ignored all the emotion and hype out there about this business, and we stuck to what we were good at, which is customer service, which is supply strength, which is adding value to our clients, and making sure that we had the best people out there and the best value proposition, that ultimately we would succeed, and we would get to a point where we had credibility and scale to get through those initial early challenges of the early years and the politics that were out there.
It was very exciting. We worked very hard, and no doubt there are some moments we wondered if we'd done the right thing, but they're only fleeting moments.
In our startup phase in 2006, we certainly had a core belief in the future of agriculture and certainly the future of our farming businesses in our part of the world. And certainly we did choose a very challenging year to start, given it's our worst drought in history of 2006. But we got through that, and it was certainly pleasing to get to the end of 2006 and having had the very strong and core response from our client base, knowing that we had a very strong future and they were responding with the new type of business that we were offering.
So we came up against some businesses with much larger balance sheets than us, but that didn't concern us because deep down we knew that if we were innovative and we had the best people, then at the end of the day that was going to be what stuck to us, and the customers will judge you on the value that you add to their enterprise each year, rather than the financial strength of the organisation. It's the people power that really matters.
Delta from day one's always had an approach of one in, all in. So whilst we all do our main day-to-day job role, there's never been any demarcation as to it's all about the client, and it's always about mucking in. When we first started, Harden really was a very small office in a huge shed with a couple of dongers, and those boys operated out of that space for a good 18 months before we were able to improve it. And likewise in Young, we had some small cluttered offices on top of a mezzanine area which was completely dysfunctional, completely full of 1,000 metres of blue computer cable going everywhere. Luckily OH&S wasn't the highest focus back then, otherwise we wouldn't have been operating for business. But after the first 12 months we were able to work through that and put in some proper facilities at those two locations.
It's all about the relationship. We always say that we don't want to get out there and make a quick buck today on a recommendation in a paddock that can solve this problem here today. We're interested in the big picture. We want to hold a relationship over the long term, and that's what we've been about right from the outset. We don't want to get in the way of what they're doing. We just want to help them do what they do and do it better, and be there year in, year out.
And certainly the staff, bottom line, are the business. They make the business. And certainly from day one and going back to our early years, we've always had a belief that you give the empowerment to the staff and back their skill set and back their judgment.
Very good, very unique, very talented staff, and that's what makes it special for me.
As we started with 8 original shareholders, and as we've progressed that, we now have roughly 50 shareholders. Pretty much every location has a shareholder within it. That hasn't been by design, that's just how it has worked. But also all of our staff have the option to become shareholders if they choose. And again, we think that spreads both the experience and culture across the business.
It doesn't really matter how much money a company's got. If you haven't got the people that have the local relationships, the deep standing community understanding, then and the respect within those communities, it's very difficult to get traction. People like dealing with people, and they like dealing with people they can trust.
We bring a level of expertise to that customer that our current competitors can't, from the animal business right through to the ag chem and servicing those customers. And over the years we've formed a very unique partnership, I'd call it, with the customers. Our relationships with the farmers become very strong, so that allows us to work very closely to them and allow us to bring that expertise to the table.
So I think one of the other great things we did early on was centralise our systems, our back end, and that's when the Sydney office came into play, but also our procurement. The procurement function is such a critical part of the business, and headed up by Kev Holt, who's now a shareholder as well, has really taken us, the way he's run that part of the business and operated that part of the business, it's really been terrific for our supply relationships and to be able to leverage the scale of a growing business. We've had a lot of highlights through our 10 years, but I think the Lachlan Fertiliser joint venture was really important for us at the time. It was 2007. It was still in the middle of the drought. It gave us an opportunity to buy an asset that we thought was reasonable at the time. It gave us a segue into CRT, into Ruralco, which got around some of those issues that I mentioned earlier about the politics of the time and supplier access, and I guess it legitimised our presence in the market in those early days. And it went on and acquired the HO Rider business at Grenfell, which is one of our top performing businesses across the company, and very proud of the way that whole company over there, Grenfell and Carra, have performed. And then only recently, 18 months, 2 years ago, being able to negotiate the purchase of the other 50% of that business from Ruralco was, I think, a really important moment in our evolution as well.
We've got a really strong set of rules about can this company be bolted onto our Delta corporate company, and as they've popped up and we've evaluated them and they've passed the test and they've come on board, it's just gotten better and better as we've gone on, and that's a really exciting part about it. You know, it's just been a continuous growth, continuous improvement, always looking at how we do things. We're not just happy to just keep doing things the way we've done them year in, year out. We're always being pushed and tested and shoved about, and you know, if we don't like it, we push back, and it's pretty much a consensus operation, and that works really well. I reckon it's a good place to work when you work in that type of environment.
One of the key growth things for Delta is that we always had an appetite for growth when we first started. Certainly we started with 2 branches at Young and Harden, but certainly after 10 years and having had now 25 branches, we certainly didn't have the view that we would have that many from day one.
We've never had a growth plan. We don't sit around looking at a map and think, well, we must be here, we must be there. It's all based on what we call logical and incremental growth, where we need to be sure that if we're looking at an opportunity, the people are right, that they're a cultural fit.
Because we believe culture is at the core of how Delta has evolved, and could have only evolved successfully as it has if we had the right culture within our business.
We don't just go and look to take on everything we can. It is measured, and we do say no to a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, look, through those early years we had to do a lot of hard graft to get things up and going and get people together, and people was what it's all about, but getting the people together took a lot of doing. Getting all the premises together and evaluating all these opportunities along the way. It's taken it's been I wouldn't say it's been an easy ride, but it's certainly taken a lot of work to get there. It hasn't just happened.
Our success is on the back of the success of our clients. We're here to ensure our clients are successful and are profitable, and if that's the case and we help them to get there, then the future for Delta is pretty bright. We can't rest on our laurels though. I mean, we need to be innovative. We need to be relevant to the farmers, we need to take them value propositions, and that we do, and therefore we should continue to grow and prosper.
And certainly it's a very proud moment to be able to get to our 10-year mark and look back on what has been achieved, and certainly for those foundation shareholders who had the vision to do this in the first place.
For the future, I think it's important that we stick to what we know, that we do embrace change and innovation and technology, that we do continue to add value to our clients. If we're not adding value, we're getting in the road. So it's really important that we continue to strive to improve our clients' returns, to also improve our shareholders' returns, and to provide careers for our people at the end of the day.
Look, we enjoy having Delta Ag as our partner in farming because of the professionalism they bring to our business. I think that's sort of it's quite infectious. And I think that's one reason. The other reason is obviously the very excellent service that Delta give us.
It's just the fact that they're never far away, you know. And if you want something, it's just a phone call. Yeah, it's nothing's ever a problem with them.
Very important, I think, that we see it as a bit of a partnership, and we have worked as partnership on improving our what we do, whether it be livestock or cropping and yields or new varieties, anything to do with our business. we do have a fair consultation with their agronomists on how to approach it.
We utilise the full range of services operated by Delta. We've built up a relationship with the team in there to supply us with our agronomy recommendations, as well as to purchase the things that we need for our cropping enterprise and our livestock enterprise.
Delta have provided a level of service that you know, probably haven't really experienced anywhere else, and whether it's the boys dropping off products for us, which they do, you know, every other day really. Those sorts of things save you a lot of time and a lot of effort. So that, you know, it's those sorts of things that are really important, and you know, price is important too, but probably the service beyond that is probably more important, and that's where, you know, I've found that Delta have they've excelled really for us.